Have you ever seen the hexagon on Saturn's North Pole? Um, if you have not, make sure you do. It is in such an absolutely incredible thing. There is what seems to be just a perfect regular hexagon at Saturn's North Pole. It is 3 times the size of Earth by diameter. Amazing. You got to see this thing. So, why am I talking about Saturn's hexagon? And by the way, this hexagon of Saturn's we have been seeing since Saturn was first photographed up close, if you're into that whole NASA trip, by the, I think, Viking spacecraft in the early 1980s. Everyone, do yourself a favor and go have a peek at Saturn's hexagon. I'm wanting to do this simultaneously on YouTube. It looks like we're good. If somebody's watching on YouTube, will you please just leave a hello? And by the way, at the end of this thing, as it's been the last many days, I will look into the Earthstrology of someone's sun, moon, rising sign. So if you would, please write your sun, moon, rising sign, and birthplace. Just that's it. Instead of getting so deep into the astrology or the correspondences of it, it's like, how did we experience that in the moment of your birth if our feet were on the ground? Thanks to Rhiannon and Stephen the Jupiterian for saying hey over there. Okay, so I know we're live. All right, well, I just spilled some hot water on the carpet. Saturn in Pisces, right? So the Pisces water, it's just going to flow where it can, but the carpet on the floor, it's like this hard surface. No, hopefully that carpet will absorb. I guess it's a rug. It's a beautiful Turkish rug, actually, that I got in Istanbul. Hopefully that rug will absorb that water, and it's okay. It's like not too much of it, Let's talk about the tea in this cup, right? I mean, it's the water and the earth being the most dense of the elements, and the water the next, right? These are both kind of down and in elements, while the air and the fire rise. Do you feel me? I love studying with tea. Because you have your earth and your water and the air and the steam rising up to the great fire, Because the fire is also inside. Anyway, well, I don't want to go too deep into the esoteric nature of the elements here today. I do want to say there's this interesting thing about Pisces Saturn. It's like this riddle, right? Of Pisces being such a boundaryless sign. Pisces probably doesn't mind that my hair looks like this. What does Saturn think about formlessness, Or what is the form of the formless? What are the rules of the dream language? Like, these are some of the contemplations I believe Pisces Saturn has asked us to take. Saturn's been in Pisces for a bit. I'm going to just rewind in a chart here and talk a little bit about the Sun-Saturn cycle, which consecutive Sun-Saturn conjunctions are separated by about 378 days. All right, the Sun-Saturn cycle, or the Saturn synodic cycle. Synod means meeting. So unless I say something like a Mars-Saturn cycle, if I just say the Saturn synodic cycle, we're talking about Saturn cycle with Sun. Right, and it's on average 378 days between consecutive Sun-Saturn conjunctions or Saturn cazemis. Though this isn't how it was originally taught to me, I have come to now begin Saturn cycles with that Sun-Saturn conjunction, and I see the middle of the cycle at the time of the Sun-Saturn opposition. Sun-Saturn conjunction, Saturn's fastest travel, which isn't that fast. We're talking about the ringed one here who likes to keep it slow. Sun-Saturn opposition, the middle of Saturn's fastest retrograde motion. So I was just speaking about that with Jupiter on Jupiter's day on Thursday, but here we are on Saturn's day, November 4th, 2023. Yeah, so let's talk about Saturn. It'd be really cool to kind of go and investigate the Jupiter-Saturn cycle, which is about 20 years long, and see if there is this time in the shapes that they together make where Saturn's stationing direct around the time that Jupiter's in the middle of his retrograde pattern. I imagine that wouldn't be true for all cycles because the orbits are not circular, they are elliptical. And so we get much more nuanced and kind of unique and perhaps interesting cycles between planets than circular orbits would allow, where they would just do these perfect like geometries, like the beautiful animations we get to find that kind of show us the geometries of planetary relations from a more kind of average standpoint, circular orbit standpoint, which is just not real. Anyway, a thing that I've been loving about Jupiter and Saturn in this particular cycle, which was seeded with a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at the 1st degree of tropical Aquarius, December solstice 2020, is that Jupiter and Saturn, with Jupiter now in Taurus, Saturn in Pisces, very artistic signs, have been playing quintile, a fifth of the zodiac. And today, with Jupiter in the middle of his retrograde in Taurus and Saturn just stationing direct at the very 1st degree of Pisces, they're about 70 degrees apart, where a fifth of the zodiac, the circle 360 divided by 5 is 72 degrees. That's the quintile fifthness. But you will find they've already had one. They'll have another Jupiter in Taurus, Saturn in Pisces quintile, and then later on with Jupiter in Gemini, a third of these perfect fifth alignments. And the fifth is a very kind of creative tendency. So that combined in August, when they first perfected a quintile with Venus starting a new cycle in Leo, really reminds me to remind myself and offer this to anyone who cares to receive it, that creativity is the way. Creativity, which requires what? I mean, confidence on one level, I think that's really important. And the Leo energetic has much to contribute in that regard. Also just that kind of spiritual flame, this idea of like creator create through me, right? Like the fire of will. It requires imagination, yeah? I mean, even if this is you just being the reed of spirit and played in any way spirit deems beautiful, right? There is at least an experience of an imagination. You receive an idea, you hear a song, right? You see a painting, and it needs to come out of you. And the other thing that requires for it to come out, like in Earth world, is some kind of medium, some kind of matter, right? And so the Jupiter in Taurus, the Venus in Leo, cyclically, Venus now in the sign of Virgo in the Leo cycle, Saturn in Pisces, this quintile general shape between Jupiter, Saturn, and Taurus, Jupiter, and Pisces, Saturn really is kind of inspired in me, like more creativity, more music, more poetry, more art, more visualizations. Instead of, for me, running straight to softwares that might help me understand things like what I was tripping on it this morning. She's like, "What are you doing?" Because I was laying down. And I was trying to understand why the celestial latitude of Venus appears different when looking from the sun than it does than looking from the earth, and times when they would be the same and things like that. And so I'm just trying to like build, orbits in my mind palace and like try to look at them from different views and the like. And I think it's really helpful for us to be in that kind of root of our mind palace and our imagination realm. Yeah. Mind palace, imagination, like palace, the kind of like crystalline things that you can build. And there's something about Saturn just paused at this 1st degree of Pisces that's, I think, asking us to be in a greater place of imagination, which for me, by the way, includes like faith, right? When the world is a mess and everything feels as if it's falling apart. I mean, let's be in a place where we can keep the faith. Like yesterday, I put on a little video to show that the ocean is still working. And while that might be silly, on another level, it's not at all. Anna and I, for her birthday yesterday, went to Stinson Beach here in the Bay Area of California. It was beautiful, super sunny, hot, um, and watching the pelicans and dogs play on the beach and whatnot. But you know, the ocean does what the ocean does. It's cool there, by the way, like, you know, the tides change significantly. And there's houses on the beach that are like raised up so that they won't get flooded. And there's one house in particular that's on these stilts that's just preparing for the typhoon and like the Armageddon waters to come. And for those of you who've been to Stinson Beach, you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of hilarious, right? And so I think in a sense there's like Saturn in Pisces. It's confusing because Saturn, we think of boundaries, and it's really beautiful to think about how like ordered that beautiful ring system of Saturn is, right? Like the astronomy so often confirms the ancient cosmological code of astrology, right? We think of Saturn as like order and structure in this, and get a telescope on the ringed one and you see this beautiful ring structure. Get close to it and you find that they're actually just tiny rocks, but like held in place into these beautiful rings. Do you feel me? Like there's something so lovely about that. Saturn himself, like Jupiter, these gas giants, you know, Jupiter's like gaseous body spins in 10 hours, right? Earth, of course, spins in 24 hours. So I'm talking about Earth hours, whatever that is. What you and I know is an hour. Like a civil hours, we say, of 60 minutes of time. Jupiter spins in 10 hours, and for Saturn, I think it's less than 12. So these like giant beings that are just whipping around. But what are they whipping around, right? But do you feel that kind of like ordered nature in Saturn? But it's also like, it's watery in a way. It's gaseous. It's Piscean. You know, if you want to just like move a crystal from here to here, you know, but what if I want to move like a column of gas from here to there? It's not going to like, not all of its particles are going to move together. Do you see what I'm saying? They will, but not in such an ordered state. And there's something I think very Piscean about contemplating gas in this regard, or if we want to watch it, you know, to watch the waters, to watch the waves, to experience the tides. And we drove back here across the Richmond Bridge after we were at the beach, and you know, we were in traffic for some time, which is like a really interesting kind of Saturn and Pisces contemplation opportunity in and of itself. And then crossing the bridge, the waters were just tranquil, they were just still. And while I think like the patterns and the structures of the waters, like somebody just turned me on to, gosh, I'm forgetting her name, this woman in Australia who's taking Masaru Emoto's like water work, the consciousness of water, where he did so much work with like water microscopically. Now this is a more macroscopic image of the power of water consciousness, because this woman, somebody, if you know, please write her name in the chat here so I can remember. It's a woman in Australia who's freezing water and seeing that like it will literally draw the shape of what she's talking about or contemplating, or can put a picture here and freeze some water next to it and it recreates this photograph. I mean, it's astounding, right? Thank you, Pachamama SF. Veda Austin. Check out Veda Austin's work that she's doing with water. It is mind-blowing, revolutionary, should change the way that we play. And on the YouTube side, by the way, from Susan Hare, thank you, Veda Austin's name comes in again. I mean, you gotta see Veda Austin's work if you're not familiar with it. Yeah, and we should all be doing these experiments, and we should be doing them with the kids. because we have an opportunity. And sorry, there's Natasha Veda Austin in New Zealand, not Australia. My bad. That's just my American ignorance and confusing accents, perhaps, or maybe I listened to her story that anyway, regardless, Veda Austin, go check out Veda Austin's work. There's some work in the, in Masaru Emoto, right? Masaru Emoto, this rice experiment that I have done, and it's game changing, right? Where you also see the power of feeling, right? So what you do is you take a mason jar of cooked rice, like white rice, it's easiest to see, and you seal that jar. And you do this two separate jars. And on one, you just in masking tape or Sharpie or whatever, you write, I love you. And on the other one, I hate you. In Emoto's work, he took it next level. He wrote, I hate you, I want to kill you. I think I hate you. I've experienced that I hate you is enough. So, or I think you could just write love and hate. Some of you from my era know what I'm talking about when I put the fist out. Radio Rahim, y'all. So love and hate, right? So you have cooked rice sealed in a mason jar that says love on it, and cooked rice sealed in a mason jar that says hate on it. Okay. Now that itself would probably be enough. I've never tried that in and of itself. What I've tried is the experiment that he suggests, which is also you love your love rice and you hate your hate rice. It's a really powerful practice at the end of the day, right? I'll come back to this, but there's a thing a friend of mine told me about Gurdjieff's work and this idea of feeding the moon, and that our souls feed the moon in this way, and that maybe when we die, there's a bit of a judgment day where you're kind of stuck at the plane of the moon in like life review. And the general practice that I call feeding the moon, like conscious moon feeding, is at nighttime and when the phase of the moon allows and clouds, like actually engaging with the moon visibly. And you kind of just have a review of the day, right? And so these are the things I'm hung up about. Like these are the things I'm excited about for tomorrow. And these are the things that are going to keep me awake. Right? Like the past and the future. So let me just feed that to the moon, and now I can sleep in her silver light. You see what I'm saying? And then perhaps if we could do this nightly, and there's been times in my life when I've really been on that game, and it's good for you, and it's good for sleep, it's good for dreams. And then there's times when I'm not at all. Last night I fell asleep to television. Right. So not proud of it, but it happened. Anyway, that if we could feed the moon daily, that, at the end of the life, then perhaps we're in this experience where we have to feed the moon, and it's a much shorter thing because you've been checking in every day or every week or something like that. All right. Anyway, this is a really cool practice with the cooked rice, right? So again, just boil white rice, cook it, sealed mason jar, 2 sealed mason jars, one you write love, the other one you write hate. But at the end of the day, you love your love rice and you hate your hate rice. I always start in the opposite direction. So the things that have been challenging today, that idiot who almost ran me off the road, whatever it may be, like I could just take the hate rice and just like send that into it. Right? And for the sake of science, right? It's like absorb this fucking terror that I have in me. And then I'm like way more leveled and clear to go love up my love rice, right? And so you just do this. And as you can imagine, the result is that the hate rice rots rapidly. It just greens and funks. And the love rice doesn't. And the love rice, you would imagine, because you're just loving it, is going to like stay pure longer than a control, right? Just rice that isn't loved or hate, nothing's written on it, just cooked rice in a mason jar, right? And so to do good science, you do this. You have a third, you have a control jar. And if you do this, you will likely find what I have and anyone I've talked to has. And the experiment suggests you will experience that indeed the rice that you're loving stays clean and like has a longer life, healthier life than the rice that you're hating, and that the love rice is it stays pure or whatever, like it's rotting or decay is elongated past the control. It's like not surprising, right? You just take a thing and you give your love to it, and it's like it's going to last longer, it's going to be healthier. The surprising thing about this experiment, I mean, a surprising thing is that it works, because of course we would be taught in a rationalistic worldview that this is ridiculous, that your love and your hating rice won't do anything to its state of decay. Even though we've been taught by quantum theory that the observer always influences the experiment. So how are you doing that? What in you does that? What is this consciousness thing? Do you feel me? Like, it's a great mystery, but it is. So anyway, the most surprising thing about this experience is that the control, right, the rice with which you are not doing anything, that you're not loving, that you're not hating, it actually rots faster than the rice that you hate. So they say this thing that's really hard to hear, which is that the ignored child is more abused than the abused child. I can't believe that, especially just given the nature of the abuse that so many children are just terribly put through. Something in my work, right, as an astrological consultant, that I'm often, sitting with. It's just these terror stories from people's youth. And it's really hard to imagine that some of the torture that kids are put through would be better than being ignored. And I had heard that before I did this rice experiment. I'm interested. The rice experiment does indeed show you that the ignored rice, the normal rice, right, that you're just thinking is just rice, is going to rot faster than the rice that you abuse, if that's what hating rice is. Yeah. But I mean, I can at least leave this with rice. It's certainly, and I see a comment here that ignoring is abuse too. I definitely agree. It just seems to me that maybe less so than some of the things that are done. And maybe not, and I don't know, and that's not an experiment I will ever perform. Ever. And I don't even want to explore the data around, and I appreciate the courage of those who do. I want to hold space with myself and with other people who have been through their challenges, and allow charts to assist, right? But anyway, I'm a big fan of working the rice experiment, and especially doing this with kids, because you get to see this amazing thing just in a month's time. You see these like clear results that your conscious emotion, or I should say conscious feeling, which for me is like feelings without thought, but directed feelings, let me say it that way, like actually have power. And you know that to be true. Like, you can go be mean to somebody and you get pretty automatic results. You can go really love somebody and you get very automatic results. Sometimes not the results you're hoping for, but then you can ask yourself if that was actually love. Do you know what I'm saying? Like right now, I'm going to ask anyone who's watching this video to like the video, to give it some love. If you dig this, write a comment, share your wisdom. Let's keep this happening. It does like reinforce the one in me who wants to continue sharing. But is that love? If I'm asking for, thanks for always seeing a bunch of hearts on the screen, and I very much appreciate that, But if you threw a heart up there without me asking for it, doesn't it mean more, right? Like, we're kind of in those questions. And like, this might be a really random place to be. This is definitely not what I had planned. I thought I was going to talk about that spilled water, and it was going to bring me into Saturn and Pisces. And then suddenly we're going in all these places. And thanks to your knowledge and whatnot, I get to hear this name, Veda Austin, which thankfully in my work, I'm connecting every day with such amazing beings like yourselves. And so I get to learn things like every day, right? Not only about astrology and see how it works and whatnot. It always surprises me. It's part of me is just completely cynical of the very idea that astrology should be able to do anything, right? Um, but to hear things about like Veda Austin's work and to go check that out just a little bit, you know? And part of it is like, I don't want to see all of it. I want to take like the simple things. She's like, yo, freeze some ice, dude. Like, love some water while it's freezing and see what kind of shape it makes, right? Like, we can actually do physical experiments, which feels Saturnine, if you will, right? And I mean, even the whole idea of the scientific processes that was taught to us of like having a hypothesis and creating experiment around that and proving yourself right or wrong and allowing your, the evidence, your conclusions to lead to another hypothesis, etc. Right? Like, I love the idea of it, and it's very Saturnine, right? But the whole fact that I'm going to will my experiment towards the results I want it to have, and therefore it might, like, there's so much of this kind of fluid and Piscean and mystery and things we can't quite understand. So someone had written over here about like the double slit experiment, like the particle versus wave theory. There's a lot of like particle Saturn wave Pisces going on here. Do you know what I mean? And like, I think there are healthy ways that we can create like safe structures, containers, and rules, like consent around like our water, our consciousness, our feelings, right? And that's part of the teachings now. I think, look in the world stage, and some of you are right in it, like there are holy wars and whatnot. These are probably important things to consider in regards to Pisces Saturn, especially cohabiting with Pisces Neptune. And they have a date here in a few years where they will conjoin the first degree of tropical Aries, where the ecliptic, the path of the year, crosses the equator, the path of the day, moving from the south to the north, this point that's due east of all of us and therefore acts like a global ascendant. It's a big deal, And I'm really wondering what it might be, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. I want to go behind ourselves a little bit. I'm very interested just in remembering where Sun conjoined Saturn last, and the answer was 2744 tropical Aquarius. And so the way that I've come to work with these sun planet cycles and exterior cycles is the conjunction, like Sun Saturn conjunction will describe the state of sorry, I'm just realizing I'm late, so I'm going to ask a friend if we can start a little later than planned. That's what that typing was, and we will see, or else I got to go. Where were we? Right, so I'm looking like Sun planet conjunction to define like the archetypal intention of the cycle, and then Sun planet opposition. Okay, so this is only for the exterior planets, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and those we can't see. For Mercury, Venus, I look at the retrograde Sun conjunction for intention, the direct planet Sun conjunction as the initiation. So here in the Saturn cycle, I'm looking at Sun conjunct Saturn Aquarius, Sun opposite Saturn when Saturn was in Pisces. And so I'll call it an Aquarius Pisces cycle, meaning Aquarius intentions that necessitate Pisces initiations. Now, as slow as Saturn moves, the next synodic cycles of Saturn, so we'll next have Sun conjoined Saturn at around 10 degrees, tropical Pisces, right at the wonderful star Hydor in the water bearer. That'll be February 28th, 2024. And then Sun will oppose Saturn from Virgo. And then Saturn will next be conjoined by Sun in Pisces again on March 12th, 25. And then Sun will oppose Saturn from Virgo, right? So in a sense, we kind of have these two Pisces cycles is how I would consider them. And those are coming. And I think some of these themes that I'm talking about today, or whatever comes alive for you, I'm really trying to paint more of a picture so that you can use your imagination to read what you see in it. I think the kind of nature of Pisces Saturn will be stronger moving forward, because I still feel that the cycle that we're in with Sun and Saturn, it is Aquarian. Again, because the seed, the Sun-Saturn conjunction, the seed was planted there. And that was February 16th, 2023, Sun meeting Saturn 2744, so 27 3/4 degrees tropical Aquarius. And then Sun opposed Saturn, the middle of Saturn's retrograde period, on August 27th, 2023, with Saturn about 4 degrees tropical Pisces then. All right. Saturn, by the way, is opposed by Sun in the middle of Saturn's retrograde. Go back to my stream from Thursday when I was speaking about the Jupiter cycle and Jupiter and the Sun-Jupiter opposition now, the middle of the retrograde period. All right. And how this means that Earth has been passing Saturn by. So Saturn stationed direct, just from an astronomical point of view, this means that Earth is finished with our passing of Saturn, which happens every 378 days. All right. So actually, let me just rewind and tell you that Saturn stationed retrograde around 7 degrees Pisces, June 17th, 2023, and then just stationed direct in the first degree of Pisces, November 4th, 2023. Right, so it went backwards about 7 degrees. It went backwards since June to November. It's like a reminder to not trip on Saturn retrograde in a birth chart. I mean, I will say that means Earth is closer to Saturn than further away, and Saturn is moving backwards through our zodiac and through the constellations of our sky, etc. But at the same time, look, June 17th to November 4th, that's almost half the year. I think if I remember right, Saturn stations when Sun is about, you know what, actually I don't want to play that game because I'm forgetting. But anyway, Saturn is retrograde for a good amount of time. I think it's the time in the middle of the retrograde, the time when Saturn's either moving from direct to retrograde or like now from retrograde to direct, where it's like most alive and sensitive and really calls us to it. And I think we're seeing it in the world out there. And I hope you like, there's ways that you can consciously do this in your world so the energy has a place to go. In my world, so here's another Saturn and Pisces thing that I feel, which is like intuition versus, is it logic or rational versus irrational, measurable versus immeasurable? I had this dream once that I always refer back to in Oregon, where I used to drive around a lot. There are many places where you will see a strip mall, and one of the stores is a psychic shop, and they always had, at least in my like dream vision, in my archetypal vision, they always have a yellow awning and it says psychic. Right? So in this dream I had, I'm having this experience, there's this psychic store, and I'm like, oh, I should go check that out. And then right next to it, and the same look, is the skeptic store. And I was like, hey, I shop at both of those places. And I hope I always will. So like, as much as astrology proves itself to me every day, literally, there's so much where I'm bewildered by it. I don't know how to do it. I'm like, I have a hard time with the truth that like all the books on my shelves completely contradict one another. The many teachers I listen to, sometimes I contradict myself. How much of it, says the skeptic, is me just kind of like having enough variables in a code that I can manipulate them to say what I wanted to say, or to reflect back what a client is saying to me? Something like that can be an issue. It's why, by the way, as a skeptic that I am, my first 100 readings were just recordings that I would send to people. And then after they reflected on whether it seemed to fit or not, then we would follow up. And seeing that most of them were like, "Oh my gosh, it's like you know me. We haven't even talked." Like, it's like, okay, this thing works. What is this? People just as above, so below, bro. Like, move along. I'm wired in such a way. I have an engineering mind. I like to take things apart and try to put them back together. Like, I want to know what makes a thing work. Which is why, by the way, if you've been here since I came on, I was spinning a crystal and trying to sing in ascending half steps, and talking about this amazing regular hexagon at the North Pole of Saturn's surface. By the way, in Jupiter's South Pole, there's a regular hexagonal form of like cyclonic storm shapes. But on Saturn's North Pole, and like the planetary scientists of our day just call it a storm, check out the hexagon in Saturn's North Pole if you haven't seen it yet. It is mind-blowing. And for me, it is this, and I mean it, like crystal. I believe that Saturn's gaseous body just happens to be composed of the right stuff, that the surface can express something that is structured down below. All right. Well, let me also say that though it's kind of been erased from the internet, so maybe because it was proved wrong, or maybe because the powers that shouldn't be don't want you to know, there was some Carnegie Research Institute science in, I believe it was the mid 90s. I wish I could tell you right now. I have bunches of slides in my sacred astronomy lectures about these cats. Oh man, other names are coming in place of the names that they are. But basically, they were looking at. I'm gonna have to find this slide so I can share these cats' names because it's just controlling me. So, but basically, they were looking at. So, oh, great. I opened a picture right to it. Ronald Cohen and Lars Stixrud. I'm just going to read to you from this paper. It says, hexagonal crystals have a unique directionality, says Stixrud, which must be aligned and oriented with Earth's spin axis for every crystal in the inner core. This led Stixrud and Cohen to try a computational experiment. If all the crystals must point in the same direction, why not one big crystal? The results published in Science offer the simplest, most convincing explanation yet put forward for the observed seismic data, and have stirred new thinking about the inner core. Could an iron ball 1,500 miles across be a single crystal? If it is, it's not a ball. It's a hexagon. And so, what is all this about hexagonal crystals in Earth's core? You and I were taught it was like this iron ball surrounded by like molten stuff and then the crust. And sometimes the molten stuff breaks through and volcano, right? Like that's what I heard in school. That's still what I see in most planetary models of what's inside the Earth. And we haven't gotten to dig deep. Well, depending on which, how deep into the rabbit hole your conspiracy theory goes. Mine goes to the inner core. So does Isabel's. But anyway, from exoteric knowledge, like we've only dug down a mile or so. Like we haven't gotten down there. So what do we know? And the way that we work towards it, right, is like shooting sound beams and getting this seismic data, because like as soon as the beam hits something, the way that it comes back, the rate at which it comes back, is it deflected, yada, yada, yada. And, obviously I'm not knowledgeable enough of the science to explain it clearly or precisely, but I think you know the deal, right? This is like how we're building computational models of what is in the inner earth. And there's been like the kind of accepted geological recipe now is that there are these crystals, mostly hexagonal and also cubic in shape. And supposedly when these combine, they can combine into just one great hexagon. And I believe that's what's there. Now, I want to believe that's what's there, okay, because I have a huge question of what is the zodiac? Right, Anna and I were just talking today about how she's having this Pluto square Mercury transit, and I'm having a Pluto square Sun transit. And this means that her Mercury and my Sun are conjoined because her Mercury's in like the last degrees of Libra, my Sun is in the first degree of Scorpio. But there's just something about that's Libra and this is Scorpio that makes you build this wall in between. And, you know, like modern astrology, it's very cyclical, it's very circular, right? There aren't really these cusps. And depending on the astrology that you go to, they might not exist at all. Like if you're more into aspect-based, like harmonic, vibrational astrology. But back in the day, it's less of a circle and it's more of a dodecagon, right? Or I would say a regular hexagon, which has 6 flats and 6 points to make the 12. You know, and in the geometry, right, like looking at the seed of life, which I was speaking about some yesterday, and every day I can, like this is how creation creates. This is creation creating in 12s. Like this is what the zodiac is. Well, that's fine to say and waving a beautiful piece of wood around, you know, but why? And I'm actually of the belief, and it is only a belief, and I'll never know, you can't disprove me, but I can't prove it to be true, that at the core of every planet there's a regular hexagonal crystal. And that what the zodiac is, because you see, I'm a true, well, not true, but I'm a believer in the tropical zodiac as a very real structure. If it was seasonal, as many teach, then it would have to be flipped for the southern hemisphere, and even, you know, Hawaii versus London which have significantly different seasonal experiences, would need adjusted zodiacs, you see? It's certainly not star-based, right? No equal sign zodiac can align to the stars, but they better be equal. Don't give me that 13th sign thing. Like, that's only going to happen from poisoned people who have never swept a compass and know about this, or played with the vibrating string and understand why there's a 12-step octave. I mean, even for musicians who are playing with much like more notes in that span of vibration, the 12 is also honored. So what makes most sense to me is this idea of like a hexagonal crystal core, and Saturn's hexagon very much describes this to me, right? So I'm seeing here a tropical geocentric zodiac makes sense to me. That's fine, but why? What is it? And I don't think we should have to ask that question. I mean, you can do great astrology without knowing what the zodiac is. I'm asked to. I have to. And this is the thing that makes the most sense. And by the way, if it is true, then once knowing it, maybe we'll look for some of the other implications. One of them, I believe, would be us coming to a way that we can harmonize with Earth's core in such a way that we can create energy that's not destroying our world, but rather actually helping it sing. Some believe that some of the pyramid sites did this. Like a really cool study is the Giza Power Plant by Christopher Dunn. All right. Anyway, these are some of the things that Pisces Saturn has me contemplating. I will say Saturn now at this station is Jupiter and Saturn will be quintile again, as I was speaking about before. So I think bringing our imagination into form, that's part of this thing anyway. And Jupiter and Taurus will help this. In this Leo Venus cycle will help us give us the creative confidence to do something about this. Trust your imagination and bring it to birth it. Saturn at this station here on November 4th in a triseptile with Venus and a biseptile with Mars. So, and by the way, a triundicile with Mercury. I mean, the whole story is basically like be loose, get weird, think outside the box. There is a world behind the world. Like, you're not going to be able to prove it, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't like perform experiments to like be solid in your own faith, right? Like, that's part of my like wanting to understand more of like what the zodiac is. It helps me practice with confidence. And again, I don't think that's necessary for, I'm not sure it's necessary for me, but it's important for me. And it's something I just love. I'm fascinated. I'm a very engineering inclined mind, you know? All right. Just one last thing about this, and then we'll do a quick sun, moon, earth astrology thing. Um, is, and I want to scroll to the first one who presented their sun, moon, earth, and rising sign if I can find it. Some people have been writing in their sun, moon, earth signs and reviewing the tape. I can't, like, the Saturn constrictions keep me from being able to hear into what I currently perceive to be the future. So if you're watching this when it's not live, I'd love to hear what your sun, moon, rising sign are, but there's nothing I can do with it unless you join me live and enter it there, okay? Um, All right, so as I was saying before, because Sun and Saturn conjoined in Aquarius, and then Sun opposed Saturn with Saturn in Pisces, I think of this as an Aquarius-Pisces cycle. And so here's one way I'd encourage you to be with that. You know, Libra is equality, and that's more, by the way, Saturn in Libra, Saturn's exaltation there, than it is Venus's domicile as Libra. Like Venus, Libra, for me, feels more like relationship. Let's breathe each other's air. How do I look through your eyes? You know, like that. Even let's walk a mile in each other's shoes. Saturn Libra feels more like justice, balance, equilibrium. You know, like for those of you who play chemistry or math, like we need to balance the two sides of the equation, right? That's very Saturn Libra. Why am I talking about Libra at all? Well, Libra births Aquarius. Why would I say that? Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Aquarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. Aquarius is the fifth of Libra. Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. The fifth is the child. Aquarius, like Libra births Aquarius. And there's a bunch of different ways that's done. Like relationship, Libra births community. Equality, Libra births equanimity. Right? So we are all equal, or we should all be equal. Like that is the ideal. Well, how do we make that real? And in this particular Aquarius Pisces Sun Saturn cycle, there's Aquarius intentions that demand Piscean initiations. Some of this will be looking into the challenges of your belief systems, and belief systems can feel much more Sagittarian, even Gemini. There's a huge piece of that in Pisces, especially when it's not a faith that has been earned through experience, but rather a belief that was called faith and given to you. So you might have been told that you're of the only people that will make it to the heavenly realms and everyone else is cursed unless you convert them, or they just can't be anyway, something like that. Do you see what I'm saying? And there are hidden ways where those kind of structures exist. We've become more and more conscious of this, you know, but or resistant to becoming conscious, you know, whatever it may be. But you can see how that kind of nature of the sign of the times is alive. And in this Aquarius Pisces Saturn cycle, I believe, is one of the many beings that's behind this. Pisces, by the way, can like, and especially Saturn and challenging planets there, like it really can bring fear and manipulation of the masses through fear structures and through faith, quote unquote, faith structures. Again, for me, faith is like that which you have found to be true, even though you know you can't see it or show it. Faith, I do not believe, is something that you were told to be true. That is what happens before seeking. And seeking is not believing, but when you seek, you will find what you find is your faith. All right, cool. Those are some of the things, and a lot of the things, some of the things I wanted to say, and a lot of things I had no idea I would say. And that's kind of how it is around here, because it's a little more Pisces and it is Saturn in my realm. All right, how is it for you? Thanks for spending some time here. Thanks for the present of your presence. I'm going to do one just Earth, Moon, and Sun Earthstrology game. The Earth, where is the Earth in the chart? In a geocentric chart, the center of the Earth, right? And however, that's global. Local, it's the ground. In other words, your rising sign, your rising degree. But I'm just going to stick whole signs here. And thanks to the 17th degree, who offered Sagittarius Sun, Taurus Moon, Scorpio Rising in Philadelphia, PA. All right. So first season of the year. Well, I will tell you that like so many sacred ancient systems of wisdom traditions, the tropical zodiac is directionally aligned. In fact, it is directionally defined. It is about Gaia's spine, the sword of our stone, the world tree, our rotational axis, which defines true north and true south. Zero Cancer, tropical, is the north point. Zero tropical Capricorn is the south point. They are, by the way, the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, which the ecliptic, the plane of the year, always passes through. And this is a global structure, especially when we consider that the Earth is moving north through space. And by the way, on November, I want to find out for you. Please get on my mailing list, GeminiBrett.com, so I can get a mail out to you about this super soon. But I think in Pacific time, Thursday, Jupiter's Day, November 9th, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. We'll be on the 10th in Australia, where the Cosmic Intelligence Agency is headquartered. That Yulia Simas from the control of Cosmic Intelligence Agency is amazing. And Luis Ribeiro, from Portugal, I'm very excited to connect with for the first time. I very much respect Luis's and Elena's work. We're going to be speaking about the challenges of the North and South Node when observed from the Southern Hemisphere point of view, because what ascends in the Northern Hemisphere descends in the Southern Hemisphere. Let me leave that there, but it's a free event, I believe, so you can get to cosmicintelligenceagency.com and likely find something about that either now or soon. And again, if you're on my mailing list, GeminiBrett.com to join my mailing list, I'll send word out super soon about how you can join that event, all right? I'll try to put a post in these places too. Because the Earth is moving north through space, and it is, because the sun is, the whole solar system is, this is one of the reasons why the directional zodiac works globally. Okay. And so, globally, the center of the Earth is the center of the zodiac. Locally, the Earth is the ascendant. It's the ground beneath your feet. All right. But I want to start like seasonal in the year. Think about Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right? We're up in Northern Hemisphere here, right? And we're talking about Sun in Sagittarius. Isabel's barking even though she has part husky coat. She should be cool. It's cold. It's colder than she's experienced. She's gotten a little Lake Tahoe and felt some snow. Hey, Isabel. Hey, Izzy. Remember I told you about the live stream? Come here. Come here, baby. Come here. Come here. Yeah, that's not happening. Sorry. Let me shut the door. Hey, thanks for protecting the house, but it doesn't have to be so loud. Gratitude, and then the rules. Pisces and Saturn. So Sagittarius in Philadelphia, right? It's a long night. Yeah, the sun is at its lowest midday expression. That's Sagittarius still sinking, still falling before the climb begins in Capricorn. So this might be the last a month of winter the way we do seasons now, but it used to be winter solstice was midwinter, you know? So we already here in this being's big three, right? Sagittarius sun, that we're talking about like the last month of fall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right? It's cold, long nights. All right, but what about the season of the day? Scorpio rising, Sagittarius sun. Has the sun risen yet? Has it become day or is it nighttime? Scorpio rising, Sagittarius sun. Well, if Scorpio is rising, Sagittarius will be next to rise. In other words, the sun has not yet risen. It's in the whole sign second. Some in a particular era of this craft call that the gate of Hades. Right? It's like the sun is trying to climb back up from the underworld, right beneath the ground. And so this is the end of a very long night. Clouds allowing, and it's kind of a roll of the dice in November, December, Philadelphia time. But, you know, you're seeing crystal clear stars and yet maybe just the breath of light on the southeastern horizon where that Sagittarius sun will rise near its southern extreme. And there's this Scorpio liminal nature at that time. Darkness and light, right? Stars we can see and stars that are already disappearing on the horizon. It's a very magical hour. But who's out to see it? Hopefully you're cuddled up in your late autumn bed. Or, you know, you're in the Philadelphia traffic, which is nuts, trying to get to work, you know. Or maybe you're Rocky, right, in Philadelphia, training. Taurus moon, because we do want to like keep the machine beautiful. But I don't know, we also want to chill. But how does Taurus moon reflect Sagittarius light to earthly eyes? And if Scorpio is rising, where would we see that waxing gibbous moon? Which is how Taurus reflects Sagittarius. Big and growing, the springtime of the lunation. Or some might call it the summertime, and I think there's a good debate there one that I'm having with myself, by the way. That's like my Gemini experience. Anyway, that moon is just setting. Maybe has set, maybe is about to set. What I see with this Scorpio rising, with the sun trying to climb up and will from that second place below, is a big, beautiful waxing gibbous Taurus moon reflecting on this northwest horizon, reminding us of the beauty and the sensuality of this marriage of heaven and earth. And Taurus moon reflecting Sagittarius light, it has so much to do with what I've been sharing, at least in my experience. Scorpio rising, we want something more magical. We want something more authentic and raw. What a shame that a professional astrologer would come on and say he's skeptical about astrology. Did I just admit that I'm a charlatan? You know, should I be burned at the stake by the ones who do Sagittarius as if they've figured out the one and only truth, and it is certainly not astrology? What, you know, no, seek, right? That's the nature of Sagittarius, Scorpio rising. I'd be really, for me, I want to know where Mars is. But anyway, a Taurus moon reflecting Sagittarius light to my earthly eyes, and doing so in such a way from the setting place. It says like there will be this deep embodiment if we go look. You know, Sagittarius and Taurus, they're quincunx, they're inconjunct, they're said to be blind to one another. I'm pausing, wondering if I was calling quintiles quincunxes before. Quin means 5, quincunx means 5/12. Anyway, it's an example I often use to express the difficulty of balancing quincunx invisibility, and the example I use is glamping. Like Sagittarius wants to get out and explore, and Taurus wants comfort. And and so glamping, it's like, what if I could bring all my things to like a warm yurt out in nature? It's like, well, you didn't get out to nature and you're not comfortable either. You see what I'm saying? Somebody just sent me a text asking me if I'm Emily Hamlet. I am not, but I'm working on it. Bringing your Hamlet to, I wonder what Emily means. Anyway, so however, Taurus Taurus reflecting Sagittarius. I'm going to say when we Sagittarius, we can offer Taurus medicine. Like, go out to the earth and you will remember how beautiful you are. Like, take the journey, climb that mountain, not only so you can get a greater view, but so in your tired state, you can truly just melt into the pain and the pleasures of your body. And this is something in the medicine that I would suggest 17th degree astro you are carrying, and that is going to help you walk a Scorpio path so Scorpio can rise in you and you can help raise Scorpio up. All right, I wish I had a lot more time to speak about the beauty of that Holy Trinity, but I'm already late for a very important date with someone who might be here right now. So if you are, I'll see you on the other side in like 3 minutes, okay? For the rest of you who are not her, it's really been wonderful to spend a little bit of time. Thank you for your comments here during the live stream. I look forward to going back and reviewing those. I do very much appreciate your liking the video and sharing it around. I'm kind of in a test place right now of how much should I do this? And brevity is not my specialty, dude. So it's going to be hard for me to do those 1 minute or even 20-minute concise little things that might be more reasonable. It is what it is. See you in space, friends. Where is that button?